welcome. I'm Suma Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro pleads not guilty to U.S. narcotics charges in a New York court. This comes after his capture under U.S. President Donald Trump. Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado says she has not spoken to President Donald Trump since October 2025. In a Fox News interview, she says she plans to return to Venezuela as she continues to be seen as a key alternative to Maduro. More than a dozen journalists and media staff are detained in Caracas while covering events including pro-Maduro march. Press groups say all are later released, but the group warns of growing pressure on media and calls for guarantees of journalistic freedom. Denmark's Prime Minister warns any U.S. bid to take control of Greenland could end NATO as global fallout continues from the Venezuela operation. She issues the warning after President Donald Trump again calls for Greenland to come under direct U.S. control. Ukraine's allies gather in Paris to finalize security guarantees to reassure Kyiv in the event of a ceasefire with Russia. President Zelensky joins more than 27 leaders and senior U.S. negotiators as they work on a joint position for future talks. Israel launches artillery and helicopter attacks in southern Gaza, with officials saying a tent of displaced people is hit and 2 family members killed. Gaza health authorities say the death toll since the U.S. brokered truce began has now risen to at least 422 people. At least 14 people are killed after flash floods sweep through North Sulawesi in Indonesia. Officials say rescuers search for the missing after heavy rain triggered flooding, with dozens still injured. Thailand's army says Cambodian forces claim a new cross-border firing incident that was an accident and not intentional. Bangkok says Cambodia blamed an operational error after Thailand accused it of violating a 10-day-old truce. Now for this hour, we start with Cuban ambassador to India, Juan Carlos Marcin Aguilera, has strongly condemned the U.S. military operation in Venezuela that led to the capture of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, terming it a criminal act and a terrorist act that violates the United Nations Charter and international law. Aguilera has emphasized that no single nation can stop the United States from such unilateral actions and called for the world to unite forces to counter what he describes as Washington's madness in international policy. Sri Lanka has also urged the UN to work towards a peaceful resolution, taking into consideration the safety, well-being, and the sovereign rights of the Venezuelan people. Meanwhile, China's top diplomat has accused the U.S. of acting like a world judge by seizing Venezuela's leader, Nicolas Maduro, to put him on trial in New York. China follows a policy of non-intervention and routinely criticizes military activity conducted without the UN Security Council's approval. Now, for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Surinder Singh Lali. He's an international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Mr. Lali, for joining us. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, why are European countries either being quiet or not condemning the U.S. directly? Aren't they risking this scenario? And justification used by U.S. towards Machado could potentially be also used towards Russia, Ukraine.
Thank you, Azuma, and konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa.
Azuma, konnichiwa. Azuma, the issue is that who wants to take Donald Trump, the mercurial, mercantilist, megalomaniac monarch? Who wants to take him head on? Because you don't know in which direction he will go. I mean, the way he has thrown all his European allies, in fact, all his allies under the bus, and in his quest to make America again, he's made this world a lot less safer place. And this is what with us, India too. I mean, we've also had a very cryptic and a diplomatic response because, we don't know. I mean, from 50%, you might just go up to 70% or 100% tariffs. So what is the choice the world have? I'm a business and a finance graduate, and we have something called the antitrust law, and in India we call it MRTP, monopolistic restrictive trade practices, which means that in any market, if there is one company which is very dominant, the government steps in and breaks it up because then it's unhealthy competition. So the problem is that post Second World War, America is the only unilateral power, especially after the collapse of Soviet Union. I mean, America's the power, so they can go into any country, pick up the sitting president for good or bad reasons, abduct him, bring him back to New York, and try him. And the United Nations is just a paper tiger. So how do you deal with this situation? Nobody has an answer, and nobody wants to be on the wrong side because this bull might just come and get you. So everybody's kind of playing it low, so that you don't want to be on the wrong side of Donald Trump, Azuma.
Yes, and why do you think, what do you think is driving certain countries to strongly condemn US's move, particularly in Asia, and how much of a consequence Cuba's statement, Cuba's ambassador's statement in India, and also Sri Lanka's statement, China's statement can have?
Azuma, what are the choices any country has for that matter but to condemn it? But I think there is more to what meets the eye. I don't think it's just to do with oil. As much as, 303 billion barrels of oil, which is probably worth $15 to $20 trillion. I think it's more to do with the way Donald Trump chooses to now practice his, Monroe Doctrine, what she calls the Dundro Doctrine, which is that, this is totally my opinion, that I think Donald Trump has gotten into this understanding, and that's what made him insecure also, that he knows that managing China is not going to be that easy because, we're thousands of miles away. So I think there is some sort of a understanding, unwritten understanding, where Donald Trump says that you don't come into my backyard because the Caribbean is America's backyard.
Right.
And, the way Chinese and Russian presence was here, and Venezuela was supplying so much of oil. So I think Donald Trump has gotten into this unsaid understanding where you don't come into my backyard, because what Donald Trump has done by picking up the Venezuelan president, how will he stop now China from invading Taiwan? Or for that matter, what right does he have now to tell Vladimir Putin to get out of Ukraine? Because he's doing the same thing. So I think there is an unsaid understanding where America says, I'm going to get Venezuela and Caribbean, you keep out of it. And what you do, and Russia can take Ukraine and it probably help them. Because at one hand he's punishing Russia and he's punishing us for buying oil. And then he gives Vladimir Putin a red carpet treatment. So how do you justify that? So he takes Venezuela and territories in the Caribbean, and the Chinese can take Taiwan, all that Donald Trump cares, and democracy, and Russia can keep Ukraine. Because I'll tell you a reason why this is not just oil. Because America, first of all, has done over 70 regime changes across the world, and I think the 73rd was, in fact, Bangladesh, which a lot of people in media are not talking about. I mean, Yunus was purely an American implant. The Nobel laureate Yunus was brought here, and the way, now America likes single window clearance. Because, Zuma, you might want to understand that America might speak about democracy, but they don't like democracy. They like to create, by regime changes, these, monarchs or these individuals who they can deal with in single window clearance. So, for example, even for that matter, Maria Corina Machado, which was originally pitched to replace,
Yes.
Maduro, but I don't think that's happening either, because again, you don't know what Donald Trump had on his mind. So they first wanted to do that, but I think they're going to bring their own, little crony, because Donald Trump has said, and he has not made a secret about it, that American oil companies will go in and under the supervision of the American army, they will drill all the oil. So I think Donald
Yes.
Trump is not even mixing his words. They walk into another sovereign nation. They, do a midnight operation like you see on Netflix. They pick up the president and his wife. They bring him back. And then now they're saying that our oil companies are going to go because maybe Donald Trump has had a lot of funding in his election from the oil companies. And the oil companies are saying, now we want penny to the dollar. So, give us the contract. So it is to do with oil. And it is also to do with a lot of rare earth because in that part of the world, there are a lot of rare earth metals too. So America wants them too because if you look at it, how 80% of the rare earth is controlled by China. And when America was throwing tariffs, I mean, China stood back and said, okay, you want to throw tariffs, you can keep your soybean, and, we will not give you the rare earth. And the moment you take rare earths out, Elon Musk cannot make his cars, or telephones can't make their phones, or, mobiles can't be made, batteries, even defense equipment. So Americans understood that they were caught napping where they did not have any rare earth. And now rare earth is the new oil or the new data. And America says, we want the oil and we want the rare earth that is in our Caribbean. And China should stay away from it. So I think there is a lot more just to oil. And also Trump has his back at home against the wall. I mean, the Epstein files, he's dilly-dallying, they release files, they take them back. Then the health crisis, I mean, Obama, health insurance. And on top of that, Trump's own health is not in great health either, because, I think he's going to be 80. If you see in his news conferences, the kind of patches he has on his hands and the way, he sleeps in his cabinet meetings. And it's very sad that one of the most powerful men in the world in a press conference is talking about how his wife folds her undergarments. I mean, that's embarrassing. The tariffs have worked, backfire, because that have caused inflation in his own country.
Yes.
And, the ballroom, which he has broken down, which Americans don't like, and the National Guard in the city, and the genocide in Gaza. So I think all of this is so much on his head that he had to do this in order to deflect attention and create a new world disorder, Azuma.
Right. So, Mr. Lally, building on that, so how will he justify when, as midterm elections approach? So while he has, you said he has kind of tried this to use this opportunity to divert the attention from all this failed things in his administration, including tariff, including the Epstein case, etc. How do you think he will play this out in his favor among domestic audience or his MAGA supporters?
Azuma, I don't think Donald Trump really thinks of the results or how he justifies it. He just is a mercurial man who just speaks what comes on his mind. I mean, he said that he would release the Epstein files. Pam Bondi said the files are lying on the table. Kash Patel said that they will release the files. And why is Donald Trump not releasing the files? Because the moment his lawyers went and saw the files, they said you cannot release because there is so much sleaze on it. So I don't think Donald Trump really thinks before of the consequences. I mean, he came into power saying that I'm the peace president, I'm not going to start any war. And lo and behold, he picks up a president of a country in an override operation. So I don't think he really thinks of the results. And from how things are looking, I mean, there is all probability they're going to lose the midterm. And as I said, I wish him all the best, despite my ideological differences with the way Donald Trump runs his politics. And he has dealt with us as a democracy by propping up Pakistan and giving $600 billion to Pakistan and calling their, fake field marshal and treating him with lunch. But I wish him all the best. But on top of that, I don't think his health's going to permit him to be for that long. So I think he's keeping the seat warm for J.D. Vance.
Yes.
Because you see the way J.D. Vance has been maneuvering himself, and especially Turning Point USA, Erica Kirk, is going to play a big role because now they're wanting to make a white Christian nation where, in a way, they're demonizing all immigrants and all brown
Mr.
and
Lally,
black people.
Yes. Mr. Lally, please stay with us. Thank you for sharing that. Please stay with us as we stay in the region. Now, U.S. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has accused U.S. President Donald Trump of launching an unauthorized military action in Venezuela, saying the operation that led to the capture of toppled President Nicolas Maduro bypassed Congress and risked dragging the United States into another foreign war. Speaking hours after Maduro pleaded not guilty in a New York court to narcotics charges, Jeffries and the Trump administration was misleading Americans by portraying the operation as a counter-narcotics or law enforcement action. Let's in fact listen into what Jeffries has shared.
House Democrats are going to continue to fight to lower the high cost of living, fix our broken healthcare system, and make life better for everyday Americans. While Donald Trump and the administration is off starting wars, most recently connected to the unauthorized military action in Venezuela. This wasn't a law enforcement action. They're lying to the American people when they say that. It was an unprecedented military action. And yes, in fact, it is the case that Maduro is a bad guy, a dictator, someone who was not the legitimate head of government or head of state in Venezuela. We also know that the future of the Venezuelan people should be determined by the Venezuelan people.
Now for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Surinder Singh Lally. He's an international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Mr. Lally, for staying with us. Now, looking at House Democrats' condemnation, him just blatantly, calling out that Trump is lying to the American people. How long will the Americans stay deceived like this, the voters, and what could be the underlying motive of Trump's actions other than, of course, the openly claimed U.S. Stance on Venezuelan oil?
I think, Azuma, that's a brilliant question, and I'm going to give you six reasons. Number one, I don't think for Donald Trump, opposition matters because this is a war he conducted, he indulged in even without taking the American House into confidence. United Nations Charter has been violated. So I don't think he cares. He just takes a decision and he has a bunch of, sycophants around him who keep, misadvising him or advising him, and then he takes a decision. And your question, a very good question, is beyond oil. Yes, the Caribbean is China, America's backyard. Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua are supposed to have Russian leanings, which America doesn't want. Rare earth. Zuma, the biggest elephant/dragon in the room is the rare earth. The lithium triangle, 60% of the world's reserve of lithium are in Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile. And the recent discovery of huge oil reserves in Guyana, plus the gold and the bauxite reserves that Guyana has. And 31% of the fresh waters is in this part of Caribbean. And for the semiconductor industry, this is very important. And the Amazon forest, the lungs of the world. So I think there is more to oil. And you said for how long? I think it's till the time either the midterms happen or the Republicans get themselves a backbone like Marjorie Taylor Greene did. Now, she's out in the open being one of his pets, and she was all over the United States lobbying for his presidency, but she's saying that, what Trump is doing is not right. So I think now it's for the American Republicans to get themselves a backbone and say that, no, this is not in the interest of the United States of America. It could be in the interest of Donald J. Trump and his business family, the way his family is, conducting business deals all across the Gazas and the golf courses and the cryptocurrencies in Pakistan, which is called the Crypto World Liberty Finance. So I think the sooner the Americans realize and they understand, the MAGA understands, that what Donald Trump is doing is not in the interest of America. It could be the interest of Donald J. Trump and his large business empire, but not for America. Because, it's only been, 12 months? He came into power on the 20th of January. So I think the sooner the Republicans get themselves a backbone, they should be able to, maybe he needs to be impeached because he's totally violating everything that America stood for, which is democracy and which is principles and morality in public life.
Yes, thank you for
Azuna?
highlighting that, Mr. Thank you for highlighting that, Mr. Surinder Singh Lali, and joining us and sharing that insight throughout our news. Now we move the focus on to Africa. President Faustin Archange Touadéra wins re-election in the Central African Republic, securing a third term in office. Provisional results released by the Electoral Commission show Touadéra winning just over 76% of the vote in the December 28th presidential election. Touadéra, who has been in power for a decade, ran again after a 2023 referendum removed presidential term limits. He campaigned heavily on security, pointing to recent peace deals and support from Russian mercenaries and Rwandan forces in a country long plagued by instability. Former Prime Minister Ansed Georges Dologuele came second with nearly 15%, while another former minister, Henry Marie Dondra, trailed far behind. Voter turnout stood at just over 52%. The main opposition coalition boycotted the vote, calling it unfair. Opposition candidates have also alleged fraud, claims the government strongly denies. The Constitutional Court will review any challenges before confirming the final results later this month. Let's listen into what the Central African Republic president has shared.
Tout le monde sait que je mène ici une politique de main tendue. Notre pays a trop souffert et notre pays a besoin de tous ses fils qui se mettent ensemble pour qu'on puisse construire le pays. Et voyez-vous, j'ai tendu la main aux groupes armés, je continue de le faire et la paix revient à cause de cette volonté, du dialogue. Et je continuerai de le faire puisque si les Centrafricains m'ont fait confiance le 28 décembre, je continuerai cette politique de main tendue et travailler avec tous les compatriotes qui le souhaitent. Nous sommes dans un pays démocratique, les gens ont leur choix. Mais ma volonté, c'est de pouvoir travailler avec tout le monde pour la reconstruction de notre.
Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Anuga Olukbenga Paul. He's a public affairs analyst, joins us live from Lagos. Thank you very much, Mr. Paul, for joining us. Good to see you. Now, how does
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you very much. Now, how does this, the removal of presidential term limits and Touadéra's third term victory affect the Central African Republic, and also what role can or have external security actors, including Russian mercenaries and Rwandan forces, played in the election outcome?
Well, if we want to look at the term removal limit, we'll have to look at it from two angles. One, it will give the country the stability in form of leadership that it needs to be able to transition if the leader is someone who has capacity and has the fear of God and the trust of the people to deliver on the quality of democracy for the people. So it will help that leader have ample amount of time to be able to complete some of the project that he started about a decade ago, and also to see to logical conclusion some of the project that he started not quite long ago, because now he has another 5 years term to be able to do that. But in the case where the leader is incompetent, it makes them become more authoritarian and dictatorial in nature. If you look at Singapore before now that the presidential term limits are now available, Lee Kuan Yew had to use almost 20-something years in office to be able to stabilize the country and get the country on its foot. The same thing if you look at Rwanda, the stability that the long presence of Paul Kagame brings to the country cannot be overemphasized. So if you look at it from that angle of performing leaders, yes, it will bring stability and progress to the country. But one disadvantage that it will have is that no matter how good, how intelligent, how smart the leaders are, and the good intention they have for the people, for them to continue to hold on to power, excuse me, they will have to, from time to time, be repressive towards opposition in one way or another. The same complaint is being said about the Rwandan regime of Paul Kagame. The oppositions are really not having it too easy, even though the optics to the outsider is that, oh, Kagame is doing well, the country is progressing. And so there will be at no point in time where people who overstay their term in office will have it easy from the opposition, and then they'll have to use the tool of repression to continue to cling on to power. So from that angle, it is neither here nor there. So it's a bittersweet situation that if the people are lucky and Todera happens to be smart, intelligent, God-fearing, he will be able to deliver on the dividend of democracy to the people. But if not, then it is going to be a very hard time in the coming days for the people. And on the aspect of coalition with Russia and Rwanda for security expertise, we've seen the result of that in recent time with reduction in hostility in the Central African Republic. And if they can maintain and build on that security that has been achieved to a certain extent, it will bring in a lot of foreign direct investment. It will also bring in a lot of local investors' confidence in being able to invest in the country, so that on the long run, this will provide more jobs for the youth, and so the youth restiveness will be reduced, and then the economy can pick up from there. So it is a good platform that they have. How they now move forward with that platform to build on it and ensure that stability is continued and secured in the country is what we wait to see.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Paul, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving the focus on to Nigeria. At least 8 Nigerian troops were killed after a roadside bomb struck their armored vehicle in the northeast state of Borno, according to local military and United Nations sources. The blast was reported to have occurred on Sunday along the Gubio-Damas AK road, where militants from the Islamic State West Africa province were said to have detonated an improvised explosive device while soldiers were halted at a camp. However, the explosion hit a mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicle, with the location described as unusual for such attacks, raising concerns that Islamic State West Africa province is expanding its operational reach. The incident comes amid warnings of rising IED attacks in Borno State and follows another blast that has wounded soldiers a day earlier. Now, for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Ayanuga Olugbenga Paul. He's a public affairs analyst, joins us live from Nigeria. Thank you very much, Mr. Paul, for staying with us. What more can you tell us about this? Thank you. What more can you tell us about this, the latest attack in Nigeria on Nigerian military by militants?
Well, this latest attack is, over the weekend, the military went and raided many of the insurgent hotspots and recovered a large cache of arms from them in the Borno area. And the heat is getting to the militants more than before, unlike before where they can just enter villages in Borno or attack military barracks in Borno without much resistance. That is no longer the case at the moment. Rather, they are now feeling the heat of the might of the Nigerian army. That is why they are now resorting into the unconventional method, the asymmetric method of, planting IEDs in places just to get casualties. Unlike before, when they can precisely determine that we want to enter this place, we want to wreak havoc. That's in the Borno area, because when I'm saying this, it doesn't mean that they are still not entering places in other areas of the country, as highlighted by the carnage that they wreaked in Nasarawa / Niger State over the weekend, where about 37 people were killed, and the operation lasted 3 hours. But in Borno, there is so much intense pressure that they are facing, and they are facing it on both the Nigerian side, the Chadian and the Nigerian side, such that there is very little room for them to operate, and that is why they are resorting into to planting IEDs everywhere now. But the intelligence gathering by the Nigerian military in the last few months has stepped up, and it is paying off, because we are seeing results of the insurgents' territory being taken back by the government and arms being recovered. In fact, the government tries to maintain tight lips on some of their victory, because as part of their broader strategy to get these insurgents unaware, the government takes some places and they won't announce it, so that by the time the collaborators with the insurgents arrive, whether to supply them weapons, food, or drugs, they will be caught with ease. So the government is very tight-lipped about several of their success, and since it is part of the overall military strategy for victory, I also would not want to delve too much into them, because a win for the Nigerian military is a win for Nigerians, and in bringing back peace and stability
Yes.
to the insurgent-turned regions of Maiduguri, Borno, and the entire Northeast generally.
Thank you for highlighting that, Mr. Paul, and hopefully that's what happens. We will be eyeing that. Thank you very much for once again for joining in with us and sharing that insight. Now we move the focus on to Asia. China has said that it has tightened controls on exports to Japan for items that could have military uses. Beijing's Commerce Ministry has announced the decision, saying that the new measures take effect immediately. The move raises tensions between China and Japan, as relations between these two countries remain strained over security and trade issues. Officials say the controls focus on so-called dual-use items, goods that can be used for both civilian and military purposes. The decision signals a tougher stance from Beijing amid growing regional and economic friction. Now we move on to our AI news. A major AI update has been announced by NVIDIA at the Consumer Electronics Tech Show in Las Vegas. A new reasoning-based system called Alpamayo has been unveiled to help self-driving cars handle complex situations and explain their decisions. Meanwhile, production of a driverless Mercedes-Benz CLA using NVIDIA's technology has also been confirmed, with launches planned first in the United States, followed by Europe and Asia. NVIDIA has also confirmed plans for robotaxi service next year, while its next-generation Rubin AI chips designed to use less energy are set for release later this year. Shares of NVIDIA edged higher following the announcement, reinforcing the company's push into physical AI and autonomous mobility. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.